In a bold move that's captured the world's attention, El Salvador is on a quest for riches unlike any other. Will Bitcoin be the key to their financial transformation? Join us as we uncover the truth behind El Salvador's plan to get crazy rich and delve into how President Nayib Bukele is shaping the nation's crypto economy. Before we delve into this remarkable transformation, let's first understand the challenges this nation faced. El Salvador, with its modest population, was once considered one of the most dangerous places on earth. A staggering 10% of its citizens were entangled in gangs. The country was paralyzed by gang wars that tore families apart, made travel impossible, and crippled the government. Disappearances were so common that they weren't even included in homicide statistics, downplaying the true extent of the violence. How did one man change the course of El Salvador? This is the incredible story of how a struggling nation aspires to achieve unimaginable wealth. In 1979, El Salvador began its transformation to democracy after nearly 5 decades of military dictatorship. However, this nascent democracy was soon engulfed in a civil war as leftist groups supported by Fidel Castro and the Soviet Union rebelled against the government. The United States, driven by Cold War dynamics, provided substantial aid to the government, a move criticized for prolonging the conflict. As the war persisted, international pressure mounted. In 1992, the United Nations brokered the peace accords, ending the conflict, but not before it claimed approximately 75,000 lives, ranking among the deadliest civil wars since World War II. These accords raised hopes for peace and set a global example for human rights and democracy promotion. Over the following 3 decades, El Salvador's political landscape oscillated between right-wing ARENA and left-wing FMLN, yielding limited change. The 1990s and 2000s brought new challenges. During the Civil War, many Salvadorans fled to the United States, leading to the formation of major gangs like MS-13 and 18th Street in Los Angeles. Deportations of gang members to El Salvador led to their rapid growth as the country's dominant criminal organizations. The result? More violent deaths in the post-accord years than during the Civil War. El Salvador saw a surge in street crime, gang activities, and sexual violence. Despite economic growth in the 1990s, driven by neoliberal policies such as privatization and dollarization, nearly half of Salvadorans still lived in poverty. By 2010, emigration, fueled by unemployment, offered some relief through remittances, but also disrupted society. Shockingly, over 6 decades, half of the Salvadoran workforce faced unemployment, with rates peaking at 43% in 2006. You might be wondering why the citizens of El Salvador haven't taken a stronger stance on their country's grave social situation. Why haven't they demanded change and a shift in priorities after nearly 2 decades? The answer is quite clear. El Salvador has been following a set of policies known as neoliberalism. These policies received unwavering support from various U.S. administrations and international financing organizations as part of globalization. However, it's not all bad news. El Salvador's economy had modest growth in recent decades, with annual GDP growth exceeding 3% only 3 times from 2000 to 2022. The COVID-19 pandemic adversely impacted livelihoods and incomes. Although the government implemented measures to contain the outbreak and provided fiscal support, economic challenges persisted. In 2021, the economy rebounded with 10.3% growth after an 8.2% decline in 2020. However, growth slowed to 2.8% in 2022 and is projected to average 2.3% in 2023. Looking forward, GDP is expected to stabilize around 2.1%, driven by private consumption, public investment, and tourism. The fiscal response to COVID-19, costing 15% of GDP, combined with low revenues and rigid expenditures, pushed public debt beyond 90% of GDP. Let's dive into the fascinating journey of Nayib Bukele, often referred to as the coolest dictator. Born in San Salvador to a Palestinian descendant Muslim father with leftist ties, Bukele's early life was far from a typical politician's. After dropping out of college, he managed a nightclub before taking over his family's public relations firm, which served both the FMLN and ARENA, El Salvador's main political parties. His political career began when he ran for mayor of Nuevo Cuscatlan in 2011 under the FMLN banner. Despite his connections, Bukele Bukele distanced himself from the party's radical rhetoric, adopting a new logo and slogan, Nuevas Ideas, or New Ideas. His popularity grew, and he later won the mayoral race in the capital, San Salvador, amassing more Twitter followers than the country's president. In the run-up to the 2019 presidential election, Bukele seized the opportunity to address El Salvador's turbulent history, distancing himself from traditional ideologies. He won the presidency with a fresh approach, denouncing corruption, gang violence, and dysfunctional institutions. Early in 2020, President Nayib Bukele requested a $109 million loan from the U.S. for law enforcement spending in his territorial control plan. The plan aimed to bolster funding for the National Civil Police and combat street violence by taking a hardline approach against gangs. However, opposition parties, Arena and FMLN, refused to support Bukele's loan request. They sought more clarity on how the funds would be spent, which Bukele did not provide. Negotiations fell apart, leading to a legislative deadlock by the end of January 2020. On February 6th, Bukele invoked Article 167 of El Salvador's constitution, calling on the Council of Ministers to convene in the Legislative Assembly on February 9th for a vote on the loan. This article allows for the calling of an extraordinary session in cases of national emergency. On February 9, Bukele entered the Legislative Assembly, accompanied by 40 military personnel, and took a seat in the Assembly President's chair. He declared, "It's clear who's in control of the situation, and we're going to put the decision in the hands of God," before starting to pray. He also stated, "We're going to give these scoundrels a week, and if they haven't approved the plan by then, we convene them again." Bukele later tweeted that if deputies did not show up for votes, the people would begin an insurrection to restore constitutional order in the country through Article 87. After a year, in February 2021, the legislative election saw a victory for Nuevas Ideas, Bukele's political party, which secured 56 out of the Legislative Assembly's 84 seats. Soon after, Bukele replaced the top 5 judges of the Supreme Court and the Attorney General with his loyalists. President Bukele of El Salvador faced the daunting task of addressing long-standing gang violence when he took office. Just over a year ago, he declared a state of emergency, allowing the police to arrest over 68,000 suspected gang members without warrants. Shockingly, he claimed 0 homicides in 365 days, a stark contrast to the previous high homicide rate of 103 deaths per 100,000 people. However, these crackdowns strained the prison system, leading to the construction of a massive 410-acre prison in San Vicente. Reports even suggested negotiations between Bukele and the imprisoned gang leaders to keep violence low. While these measures improved safety, they raised human rights concerns. El Salvador now has the world's highest incarceration rate, affecting 2% of adults. Despite this, Bukele enjoys high approval ratings due to the relief from gang violence. El Salvador made history when it became the first and only country to recognize Bitcoin as legal tender in 2021. The country introduced a digital wallet called Chivo for daily transactions. However, the value of Bitcoin has been extremely volatile. Regardless, Bukele continued to invest state funds in Bitcoin, purchasing 100 coins in November and an additional 500 more in May when the price dropped. As of now, El Salvador holds approximately 2,400 Bitcoins worth around $48 million, roughly half of what was initially paid for them. Bukele made headlines during Bitcoin Week in El Salvador when he announced plans to build a Bitcoin city. This city, powered by geothermal energy and located along the Gulf of Fonseca, is funded through a unique financial instrument known as Bitcoin bonds or volcano bonds. Bukele believes that the issuance of these bonds could raise $1 billion, attracting investments that would fund schools, hospitals, and public works. However, some analysts remain skeptical, considering the country's limited access to banking and the internet for its citizens. El Salvador's ambition under Bukele is to become the Singapore of Latin America, with projects like Bitcoin City. By leveraging the cryptocurrency community, the country aims to attract like-minded individuals who share its values. This influx of investment has the potential to transform El Salvador and improve the livelihoods of its citizens. If you want to learn more about the political history of El Salvador, click the video on screen now, where we break down Nayib Bukele's rise in the political ranks of El Salvador. You won't believe how he managed to get on top at such a young age.